A trial date is set for former U.S. President Donald Trump, and Hunter Biden agrees to a plea deal. Hello, I'm Mike Walter, filling in for Anna Naidu, and this is The Heat. A United States District Court judge has set a tentative criminal trial date for Donald Trump starting on August 14th. The former U.S. president was indicted last week and pleaded not guilty to 37 counts of withholding classified government documents and obstruction of justice. Observers say it's almost certain the date will be pushed back to give both sides more time to prepare. Meanwhile, U.S. President Joe Biden's son reached a plea deal with the U.S. Department of Justice. This after a 5-year-long federal investigation into Hunter Biden's taxes. In nearly 1 year since the U.S. Supreme Court overturned the landmark Roe versus Wade decision, what is the future for abortion rights in America? We've got a lot to discuss, so let's get right to our panel. Joining us here in Washington, D.C. is Jackie Luqman. She is a member of the Black Alliance for Peace, a contributor to Black Power Media, and co-host of By Any Means Necessary. That's on Radio Sputnik. Rena Shaw is a political analyst and current affairs commentator. We also have Rafael Bernal. He's a staff writer for The Hill. And Adolfo Franco is an attorney and Republican strategist. Welcome all of you to the show. Adolfo, let me start with this interview Donald Trump did with Bret Baier of Fox News, generating a lot of headlines because of him discussing the classified documents case. Here's part of the exchange. Let's watch.
These boxes were interspersed with all sorts of things, golf shirts, clothing, pants, shoes. There were many things. I would say much more, not that I know of. There was no document. That was a massive amount of papers and everything else talking about Iran and other things. And it may have been held up or may not, but that was not a document. I didn't have a document per se. There was nothing to declassify. These were newspaper stories, magazine stories, and articles.
Adolfo, I know you watched that as a Republican strategist, but you also have that other hat as an attorney. As an attorney, were you cringing just a bit at this interview?
Well, not really. I mean, we expect this from President Trump. I think there's certainly a level of candor in this that I think everyone appreciates, including from a legal standpoint. The fact of the matter is, we have yet to see the facts in this case, as we have had discussed in this program before. We're talking about a massive search, I think an illegal warrant under the Fourth Amendment, a general warrant of 13,000 documents, of which I guess 121 are now to be debated whether they were declassified. The president should have returned them, had them for a period of time that was longer than what had been requested, and so forth. This is going to be all, like every case, decided on the facts. So I didn't take anything alarming from this. I think it is still, and the important point here, this is a civil statute we're talking about, and what they're trying to do, as they did in New York, is extrapolate from that some criminal activity and obstruction, when every indication from the president had been that he had been cooperating, although he has no constitutional right or constitutional duty to cooperate. He was cooperating. So I think the viewers need to understand that the government needs to prove the case. Donald Trump doesn't have to prove his innocence, and the standard for obstruction is quite high because it goes to willful intent, nefarious, evil mind, knowingly, and he's not a lawyer. So when you ask your question, is it cringe a bit? Sometimes a non-lawyerly question goes to the credibility of the witness and the fact that he didn't have that intent. So this, again, we need to see play out as this moves forward.
But one of his former attorneys said that these comments made in the interview can be used against him in court. And that's been one of the criticisms, that he just doesn't listen to his attorneys. You know, it's maybe, and you've seen interviews before where people say, hey, look, this is a legal matter. I really can't discuss that right now. That doesn't seem to be in his playbook, though.
No, it isn't. But it's not been in his playbook, if you use that term, his entire career. And to date, you know, I've read so many political obituaries about President Trump, and they've all proven wrong from a legal standpoint, of course, and a political standpoint. So, yes, you're absolutely right. Anything that is said is admissible. But again, they go to state of mind, knowingly, and a number of other standards. There's something also you mentioned about what's cringing with people is those that are too clever and keep asserting their rights and being very cautious. Suggest to ordinary jurors, remember this will be a jury trial, that someone has something to hide. Although it's your perfect constitutional right not to share information, to many observers and jurors, that's often an indication that you actually knew something and didn't want to say it. So it can play both ways.
Rafael, you practiced law back in Mexico City, so put your lawyer hat on for just a moment. I imagine, you really look at this as a court of law and the court of public opinion. Obviously, he's appealing to his MAGA supporters, but you kind of have to dangle both courts, don't you?
I mean, from that perspective, I wouldn't want to be his lawyer in this case. Adolfo is right in that the facts will have to play out, and the burden of proof is on the government. So that is a very important factor. I think he might be a little generous towards President Trump because he might be actually showing that intent. The indictment written by the special prosecutor really goes to lengths to demonstrate that intent, quoting former President Trump at times when he said he would defend national security secrets and so on, sort of proving that he knew what he was doing was wrong, and he knew other people shouldn't do it. So the government has a stronger case than one would have expected for such an unprecedented series for such an unprecedented indictment.
And Jackie, the New York Times is reporting that in court filings, prosecutors are saying they have evidence they will provide to Trump's defense team as part of the discovery process that will contain information about ongoing investigations that could identify uncharged individuals. Of course, that's sparked a lot of speculation. We don't know what those ongoing investigations are or the other names that might appear. What do we read into this?
Well, I'm actually reading into this the fact that I don't think I've ever seen this level of, I guess, interest, media attention, and scrutiny on a president taking, or a former president taking documents away from the White House in all the years that presidents have been taking documents from the White House. Let's be clear, Donald Trump is a despicable human being. He was a terrible president, but he hasn't done anything in this particular case that any other president has done, as evidenced by Joe Biden having documents in his garage, in his home, in Rehoboth Beach, in Wilmington, I think Wilmington, Delaware, rather. Other presidents have been caught taking classified materials from the White House after their term is over, and none of those people were prosecuted. So it's interesting to see the hysteria in the media, people trying to extrapolate what other people can be implicated in this. And this much attention is not paid to every president committing countless war crimes against people around the world and violating the lives and the rights of the people in this country. I'd love to see the amount of attention given Donald Trump to those other presidents for the things they did that affected humanity on a much broader scale than what Trump has done.
Rena, she's pointing out that Biden was also in possession of classified documents. I guess the difference between Biden and Pence, though, is the government came to him and said, give us back the documents. They did. In this case, Trump did not.
The thing about Donald Trump is that he does things the way he wants to do them. His attorneys at some point even suggested to him, according to the Washington Post, that he even settle. But to Trump, settling would mean admitting losing and admitting guilt somehow. This is a guy that we know how he operates. We've seen the playbook for 7 years. He doesn't operate by the same set of rules the vast majority of Americans do. And I think what we see now happening in the public sphere is a real genuine fatigue for what we see to be the drip drop of the details of these legal cases. And let's not forget, there's not just one. There's this one related to classified docs, but there's another one related to his interference in the election, relating to Georgia, his actions with the Georgia Secretary of State, and with the results there in 2020. And then, of course, let's not forget January 6, 2021. I think these trio of legal cases all spell trouble for Trump, because what it really means is that the Republican Party has a ticking time bomb on its hands. Look, even if he's charged, will he do the time if he's done the crimes, found to do the crimes, found guilty? Again, he is operating under this presumption that we have here in these United States of innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. So what, again, we are seeing surrounding the former president as he is a candidate for 2024 is not any level of mystery, a great level of distaste for what his brand really does for Republicans and for the American electorate writ large. There's public opinion reflecting the sentiment despite what he's showing to poll as in 2024 primary GOP polling.
You talked about the playbook. The U.S. District Judge Aileen Cannon has set the trial date for August 14, following the indictment, the 37 counts last week. That's a swift turnaround. You mentioned the Trump playbook. As one analyst described it, it's deny, deflect, and delay. So realistically, one would expect a lot of delays on the part of his defense team. I mean, what are we really looking at in terms of this trial actually getting underway, and how long is it going to be delayed, do you think?
Is that back to me or?
Rena, and then I'd like you to also respond, Adolfo.
Sure.
But Rena, what's your take?
Well, Judge Cannon was appointed by Trump. And look, she has been, by all measures, been seen to be acting in accordance with what she believes is the law. This is not somebody that's acting politically motivated because, again, she's appointed by former President Trump. So, look, justice should be swift, but these things take time. The minute a motion is filed, I believe that sort of, stops the clock, if I'm not mistaken. And I'm not the legal expert here, but the political sort of ramifications of all this is that the Republican leadership, whether it's in the House or in the party in general, is going to have a very tough time defending, again, all these sort of things coming out, drip, drop every day. We've never been in this moment. This is a modern problem. Never before have we seen a president be indicted, not just once, twice. And then how do we deal with that in the public eye? We're going to see our media, our mainstream media here in the U.S. deal with it in a unique way. And also, how does it hit the American consciousness? I believe it'll be a long time until we have any reliable polling on that.
And Adolfo, you are the attorney. We'll turn to you for advice on this. How long will this be delayed? I mean, what are we looking at realistically, do you think?
Well, a long time. The president has the constitutional right to a speedy trial, but he can waive it, and he will waive it because there'll be significant motion practice on both sides. And that means everything from summary judgment to all kinds of, this is a complex case. So I can't imagine any case being decided very quickly. By comparison, which we haven't talked to yet, the Hunter Biden case, which in comparison to these allegations is like a traffic ticket case, took years for the Justice Department to bring charges. And here they are in lightning speed. We haven't heard anything about the Biden investigation on their documents. But boy, when it comes to Donald Trump, you have a B-52 bomber approach. When it comes to Hunter Biden, you have a crop duster. But anyway, to answer your question, this will be delayed a very, very long period of time, frankly, by both parties through motion practice. So that August 14th is very much an artificial date. But I think the guests here have said some really revealing and important comments. First of all, I was delighted to hear Jackie's comments because Jackie is clearly not a Trump supporter. I think President Trump is great. She doesn't. But Jackie's sense of justice and priorities are exactly where the American people are, irrespective of her views of President Trump. So that goes to what is at play here. To Rena's point about the polling, since you're a Republican, Rena, President Trump is 40 and 50 points ahead of other Republicans. So it's very clear that President Trump enjoys enormous support among the American people and certainly among Republicans. And you have to win the Republican nomination to get to first base. So I think those were important comments to keep in place. Now, with respect, Mike, to your comment about President Biden cooperating, President Biden was never president when he stole documents from a secured place in the Senate. Stole because he had no right to them. So it doesn't matter if you were cooperating, Hillary Clinton as well. It doesn't matter if you were cooperating or not. You had no rights to those documents in the first place. President Trump can make an argument, as did Bill Clinton, as Jackie pointed out, and former presidents. He wasn't a former president. President Biden was the one who said before these documents were found it was extremely irresponsible, and nobody in public office should ever have classified documents in an unsecure place. Lo and behold, they're in his garage and in all over Washington, D.C. So when you look at the totality of this, and lastly, Rena, yeah, we had never seen this in America. It's called weaponization. All three cases are run by Democrats. All three cases are a playbook here by the Democrats to win the election by trying to destroy the frontrunner of the Republican Party. So if you apply the Comey standard, he never should have been indicted in the first place.
Rafael, Adolfo brought it up, so let's talk about the other major legal development this week, this one involving the president's son, Hunter Biden. He has reached a plea deal with the Department of Justice. He'll agree to plead guilty to 2 misdemeanor charges, a separate felony gun charge likely to go away, be dismissed. This is House Speaker Kevin McCarthy's reaction.
My first reaction is it continues to show the two-tier system in America. If you are the president's leading political opponent, the DOJ tries to literally put you in jail and give you prison time. If you are the president's son, you get a sweetheart deal.
Of course, we just heard from Adolfo. We heard from Kevin McCarthy. You're hearing a lot of this on the Hill, aren't you?
Yeah, this is an issue that will be politicized no matter what. It is political by nature because it is the president's son. The charges that were brought against Hunter Biden are by most legal experts that I've heard, they're not charges that are very commonly brought. So it could have been that Hunter Biden would not have been charged. That could have happened. Now, so the question isn't really if this is a slap on the wrist or not. That obviously Democrats will say one thing, Republicans will say another, and it's really a matter of opinion. The real question is whether the president's family deserves or requires this increased oversight or strict oversight. So in this case, it seems there was more oversight. There was a 5-year investigation by a Trump-appointed official into Hunter Biden's dealings. That is unusual, but it may be warranted because he was originally a former vice president's son and is now the president's son. So it's really the distinction, no matter how you cut it, is entirely political, and we live in a very divided country.
And are they going to get mileage out of this, do you think, Republicans?
Oh, absolutely. It's great fodder for their campaign. It's a present for them. It's an opportunity for whataboutism with Trump's own legal questions. I did want to clarify one thing about whether then Vice President Biden had stolen or not these documents. Of course, we don't know that. That would be for a jury to decide. But I'm pretty sure the vice president has very high security clearance and does have access to these kinds of documents. So
he was a senator.
So there is that distinction. He did at some point legally have access to many classified documents. Whether they were the ones that they found in his house, in his office, we just don't.
Well.
Go ahead, Jack.
He took them when he was a senator.
Adolfo, hold on for just a second. I want to let Jackie jump in here for a second. She was trying to get in.
Yeah, I thank you. I want to interject about this Hunter Biden situation because, listen, there's a lady in Chicago. Her name is Anjanette Young. She's a social worker, Black woman. Back in 2019, Chicago police burst into her apartment serving a no-knock warrant, handcuffed her naked, had captured her standing there naked, handcuffed in her home while she is telling them, you have the wrong address. They ignore her, Why did they serve this no-knock warrant? They were looking for someone else who had an illegal firearm, allegedly. Now, Hunter Biden is accused of being in possession of a firearm illegally because at the time he purchased it, he said he was suffering from substance abuse issues, and it's illegal for people to, that's illegal in this country. Where's the no-knock warrant served on Hunter Biden? So, I mean, my concern in this case with Hunter Biden is not so much the comparison between the investigation into Hunter Biden's issues and the investigation into Trump's issues. That is an issue. My issue is that Hunter Biden gets treatment that everyone else in this country, particularly working class and poor Black people, would never get, and Indigenous people and Latinx people would never get by the police under the exact same circumstances. If someone is suspected of having an illegal firearm in my neighborhood, SWAT is outside. Our door gets broken down. If we survive the encounter, we might be able to sue the city for damages, but the police who violate our rights and our bodies, they don't pay.
Yeah.
But Hunter Biden gets to agree to a plea deal where he gets a diversion program, and that is just another level of injustice in this very unjust legal system in this country.
That's right.
Rena, there's another issue that's been in the headlines definitely this week, and that's abortion. We're coming up on the one-year anniversary of the Dobbs decision by the U.S. Supreme Court, which overturned Roe versus Wade. Since that time, 14 states have passed near-complete bans on abortion. Los Angeles Times had a piece just a few months ago saying that those fighting against legal abortion are showing their hand, that their next step is to try and outright ban on contraception. There were primary elections in Virginia. Again, this issue resonated with a lot of voters. Some lawmakers turned out of office in Democratic primaries. Give us your sense of how this factors in as an issue this year.
Well, let me start by saying, because one of your panelists name-checked me and said I'm a Republican. So yes, I'm a very proud Republican. Of many years, I'm a very proud pro-choice Republican. So let me be very clear about what that means. That means that I believe that women should have freedom to do what they want to do with their bodies. Bodily autonomy should be paramount in a representative democracy like ours. And what a great many Republican men are undertaking in state houses across the country is a mission that is nothing related to really standing up for life. This is about denying reproductive care for women of lower income status, and particularly Black and brown women are the women who suffer when reproductive access is cut off. In rural communities like the one I grew up in West Virginia, these women are particularly in danger. And I say this because Roe versus Wade was the law of the land when I was in my most formative years. I'm still of reproductive age, and I will always be in my prime, unlike what Don Lemon said on CNN about Nikki Haley. But I believe that American women understand what's on the ballot in 2024, and it will be abortion. So what we've seen in the aftermath of the overturn is Republican legislatures continuing to do these bans that are truly nonsensical. And I think what Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida, did, in fact, is the most indicative of how Republicans are dealing with the issue of abortion. They're signing bans in the dark of night. They don't want fanfare around it because they're doing it to appeal to their most conservative, right-wing, evangelical voters. And look, there's nothing wrong with loving God and being a person of faith. I'm also a person of faith. But the beautiful thing in this country is that there's separation of church and state. And so I am very, very much concerned about people legislating with their holy books. I do think the Biden administration has messaged really well on this. And I do think that the longer abortion continues to be in the spotlight, particularly as we see these GOP primaries start and heat up and the debates begin for the presidential nominations and the conventions, abortion is a really tricky issue for Republicans to navigate, given what is happening in the state houses. If anybody wants any more information about how more Republican women feel about this, look no further than South Carolina, where there was a trio of women in the state legislature there who were mainly Republican. 3 of them were Republican, I believe one was a Democrat and the other one independent or something. Maybe I'm wrong on that. But the fact that 3 Republican women, older white women, again, probably not even of reproductive age, stood up and against their colleagues and said, what you're trying to do with this ban is so wrong. And trying to go for lesser and lesser on weeks, that's not where public opinion is. So again, this is not just thorny. This is an issue that really stands to close the doors to the White House for Republicans in 2024. Let me just put it bluntly.
Raphael, Senate Democrats plan to introduce 4 bills to protect reproductive rights this week. Can you talk to us a little bit about the legislation and what's going to happen? I mean, we've got a divided Congress, the House led by Republicans, Democrats in charge, and the Senate. What's likely to happen with these bills, and what do these bills tend to do?
Hey, like most issues, most big divisive issues, reproductive rights is now a political messaging campaign issue. The content of the bills that won't put it this way: those bills are not going to see President Biden's desk. Almost certainly, there is a possibility that they could pass a GOP-led House, but it's a very small likelihood. But the reality of this abortion issue is, as Rena was saying, it is, or I guess alluding to, it is an issue that definitely benefits Democrats in a general election. Republicans could be shooting themselves in the foot by bringing this up, by celebrating these changes that the Supreme Court put in a year ago, because yes, it plays very well in a Republican primary. It is going to be very hard to sell this issue, to beat this issue. Like, for instance, Republicans are winning on border security as an issue. Like, whatever side you stand on it, they tend to win the political discussion. Maybe the policy discussion is an entirely different thing. With abortion and reproductive rights, they tend to lose that political discussion, and generally even the policy discussion. And you see it in state houses where, I mean, in state Supreme Courts that are overturning some Republican abortion bills. It's really not a winning issue, and sometimes it is almost confounding why they chose to lean into it so aggressively after, frankly, decades of holding those same pro-life positions, but not actually acting on them because they knew what the polling said in the general population.
Well, we're going to have to leave it there. Thanks for a great discussion. I'm Mike Welter in Washington, D.C. Thanks so much for watching another edition of The Heat.